The first lie I ever told was that I was over him. The second was that I didn't dream about him every single night. Both were pathetic attempts to convince myself I could live a normal life. One where my heart didn't ache every time I remembered his voice. It was 4 years since Mr. Carter had been my high school English teacher. The one who believed in me when no one else did. He wasn't just a teacher, was the reason I went to college at all. Without him, I'd probably still be stuck in my father's garage fixing rusty cars, pretending I didn't want more. And yet, here I was, back in my hometown for a short break, standing in front of the same library where he used to tutor me after class, my chest burning with memories I couldn't shake. I thought I'd buried all of it. That dangerous crush, that impossible longing. But the moment I saw him again, walking out of the cafe across the street with his familiar stride, coffee in hand, I felt 16 all over again. Ethan. His voice cut through the haze, smooth and steady, like nothing had changed. I froze, heart hammering. He looked the same, maybe a little older. Lines at the corners of his eyes. But it only made him more devastating. He wore that same gentle smile, the kind that made you believe he saw you, really saw you, in a way nobody else could. Mr. Carter. I whispered before I caught myself. My cheeks burned. I mean, Daniel. He chuckled softly, shaking his head. You don't have to call me that anymore. You're not my student now. That single sentence, simple as it was, cracked something open inside me. Not his student. Not bound by that line anymore. But did that mean? No. I couldn't even finish the thought. We ended up sitting at a small table outside the cafe. The autumn air was crisp, leaves crunching underfoot, and every second I spent across from him felt both surreal and intoxicating. So, you're at college now. How's that going? He asked, eyes on me, warm and encouraging, like he genuinely wanted to hear every detail. I swallowed. It's good. Hard sometimes. But I'm making it. You were right about me. I guess I really did have something worth fighting for. He smiled, and it felt like sunlight. I never doubted you. The silence that followed was heavy with everything I couldn't say. How many nights I'd wished I could lean across a table like this. Not as his student, but as something more. How many times I'd imagined what his hand would feel like on mine. And yet, fear pinned me down. This was the man who once mentored me. The one who lifted me out of the darkness. To confess what I felt now would risk destroying everything we had. But then his gaze lingered a little too long. And for just a moment, I swore there was something unspoken in his eyes. Something I wasn't brave enough to name. The second time we met that week wasn't an accident. He invited me to help him organize an event at the school, guest alumni speaking to the students. I said yes before my brain could catch up. Anything to spend more time with him, even if it tore me apart inside. Walking the halls of my old high school with him beside me was like stepping into a time machine. The lockers, the faded posters, the faint smell of wax on the floor sit all came rushing back. But this time, I wasn't the lost boy he'd once rescued. I was older, sharper, aware of every brush of his arm against mine, every shift of his expression. At one point, while stacking books in the library, my hand brushed his. It was nothing, an accident. But the shock of heat that ran through me left me breathless. He pulled back quickly, too quickly, muttering an apology. But his ears were red. That was the moment I realized I wasn't imagining it. There was something between us. And it scared me more than anything. Because if I was right, it meant he felt it too. And if he felt it too, then every rule we'd lived by, Every boundary we'd respected was already crumbling. Later that night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his laugh echoing in my head. The way his eyes had softened when he caught me smiling. I thought of the risks, what people would say, what it might do to him, to me. But none of it silenced the single truth that burned brighter than the rest. I wanted him. I had wanted him for years. And maybe, just maybe, he wanted me too. I didn't see him for 2 days after the school event. And it was torture. Every hour was a silent war between reason and longing. Reason told me to let it go, to walk away before I made a mistake I could never undo. Longing told me to fight, to hold on to the one person who had ever made me feel like I was worth something. When my phone finally lit up with his name, I almost dropped it. He wanted to meet. His text was short, simple, but it carried weight. Come by the house tonight. We need to talk. Those words, "we need to talk," were dangerous. They could mean an ending, or they could mean everything I'd been waiting for. I drove over with my pulse hammering, rehearsing what I might say, then immediately hating every word. When he opened the door, he looked tired, conflicted, but his smile still knocked the air out of me. "Thanks for coming," he said softly, ushering me inside. His home was warm, cozy, books stacked neatly on every shelf. It smelled faintly of coffee and cedar. I stood awkwardly in the living room while he poured us each a glass of water. The silence pressed in until I thought I'd choke. Finally, he set the glass down and turned to me. "Ethan, I think you know why I asked you here." I swallowed hard. "Because we both feel something we're not supposed to." His eyes flickered, but he didn't deny it. Instead, he exhaled slowly. "When I saw you again, it was like a part of me I'd buried came rushing back. You're not that kid anymore. You're grown. You're strong. And being around you again is complicated." "Complicated," I echoed, my voice breaking. "Daniel, I've tried to stop feeling this way for years. But every time I see you, it gets worse. I can't hide it anymore." For a long moment, he didn't speak. He just looked at me, his eyes dark and unreadable. I thought I'd ruined everything. But then he stepped closer. So close I could feel the warmth of him, smell the faint scent of his cologne. "Do you have any idea how hard it's been?" he murmured. "Wanting something I told myself I could never have. You were my student, Ethan. You were a boy who needed guidance. Not this, not love. But now," his voice cracked. And that was when I knew. He felt it too. My chest tightened, tears burning my eyes. "Then don't fight it anymore. Please." And before I could stop myself, I closed the distance between us. Our lips met, hesitant at first, then fierce, desperate, as years of silence broke open in one shattering kiss. His hand cupped the back of my neck, pulling me closer, while mine clung to his shirt like I was afraid he'd disappear. When we finally pulled back, breathless, his forehead rested against mine. "God, Ethan, what are we doing?" "Something right," I whispered. "For once, something that feels right." The weeks that followed weren't easy. We kept it quiet, careful, terrified of judgment. There were nights I lay awake wondering if we were doomed, if the world would tear us apart the moment we stepped into the light. But then there were mornings, slow, golden mornings when he'd make me coffee, when we'd sit on his porch and talk about books and dreams, when his laughter filled the air like music. In those moments, I knew the fight was worth it. One evening, as autumn deepened into winter, we sat side by side on his porch swing. a blanket draped over our shoulders. My head rested against his shoulder, and for the first time in years, I felt at peace. I used to think love like this was impossible. I admitted softly. He squeezed my hand. I used to think it was wrong. And now, he turned to me, his eyes shining with something I'd only ever dreamed of. Now I think it saved me. The wind rustled the trees, and the world felt still, suspended in that fragile, perfect moment. I leaned up and kissed him again, slow and sure, not as a student desperate for approval, but as a man who had finally found where he belonged. Love had once felt like a cage, something forbidden, something I'd never be brave enough to touch. But with him, it became something else. It was a risk, yes, but also a lifeline. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, or how the world would see us. But sitting there with Daniel's hand in mine, I realized it didn't matter. For the first time, I wasn't lying to myself. I was his, and he was mine. And that was enough. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.